Two guys of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Reckless speculation.
It's a Reckless Speculation Thursday for all who celebrate. It's March Madness opening day. I mean, not counting the first four games this week. To all who have filled out brackets, we got our guy Darren Doogie Wolfson in the house from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. We'll talk some Vikings here. But first, MSP Plumbing, Heating and Air, Judd, powering today's scoop session.
Yeah, let's talk about trust, because that's the most important thing. You know, Sports Dad can't repair a darn thing around his house, and he certainly, when it comes to plumbing, heating, and air, can repair nothing. And that's why Judd needs somebody that he can trust. And Sports Dad has found that. My friends at MSP have done a fantastic job. How do I know? First-hand experience. Water heater, water softener, they had to both be replaced. It was a great run, 30 years, but they were both on the outs. So guess what? MSP comes to my house. Not only does Sports Dad allow them in, but Sports Dad says, come on downstairs and fix them. And I'm going to tell you right now, the water, it's softer. Everything's working perfectly. I am a satisfied customer, and now I want you to experience what I did. If you have any needs that involve your plumbing, heating, or air, just give them a call, 651-615-4292, or check out their website at callmsp.com. That is callmsp.com. Everybody needs someone that can take care of their house and keep it safe. MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air is there for you to do exactly that.
Reckless speculation.
All right, Dukes, now that the Vikings and the NFL world have finally given permission to everyone now to report that JJ McCarthy is the starting quarterback, what did you make of all of this? And do you think, because now there's still some smoldering, well, you know, let's see how the spring practices go for McCarthy. What put a percentage on the chances McCarthy is the starting quarterback week 1 barring injury?
Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. I promise, even though I'm unshaven, it looks like I'm coming to you from a dungeon. I am not being held hostage.
Blink twice if you're okay.
Shower curtain?
Coffee. I don't even know what that is. Yeah, it's comparable to a shower curtain.
I think the Vikings are great. There's no question the Vikings are my favorite team. I am safe.
I love it. All right, percent change. JJ McCarthy is starting week 1 early September, 85%, 90%. I'll offer a little leeway just based on what we see, OTAs, minicamp, more so when the pads come on in August. But I'm bullish on JJ McCarthy. I'm a firm believer in JJ McCarthy. To me, more importantly, there's a reason why Kevin O'Connell last August called him a franchise quarterback. So I think we will see that franchise quarterback on the field in September. Now, I think this was always the plan going back to the Tuesday morning after they lost that playoff game in Glendale, Arizona to the Rams. Like, JJ in that moment was the betting favorite. Certainly they talk about all sorts of different scenarios. Okay, last year entertained slightly the idea of bringing back Kirk Cousins, but I think we all knew logically Kirk wasn't coming back. Okay, sort of entertained the idea of bringing back Darnold. Clearly, if they wanted Darnold back, you slap the franchise tag on him. Okay, Sam was never coming back. Aaron Rodgers, okay, his representation trying to push the agenda forward. Okay, the Vikings didn't hang up the phone. So from that standpoint, they entertained the idea. But to me, this was always the end game. And I get it. There's some national folks suggesting there's still a sliver of a chance on Aaron Rodgers. I suppose if something catastrophic happens to McCarthy in the summer, okay, and he's out there, maybe we then revisit this conversation, but I think it's 85 to 90%. Let me also add a note on the timing of the leakage on this information. I was told at Gophers Pro Day on Wednesday by a couple of Vikings season ticket holders that money is due. Maybe you guys have brought this up on Purple Daily, but initial money is due Friday. Now, hey, I'm sure a lot of people are renewing their season tickets. But I get the sense, whether it's social media, out and about, a majority of Vikings fans were anti the idea of Aaron Rodgers joining the team. So now the Vikings pedal the message forward. Okay, money is due on Friday. Just an interesting tentacle to all of this. I'm not suggesting this information came out on Wednesday because money is due on Friday. I think it's an interesting talker, put it that way.
And Duke, they also finally made, I think there was, 3 of their free agent signings available yesterday on a Zoom call and then 3 today. I think there were a lot of loose ends to tie up because, clearly if you put guys that are going to play for the Vikings on the call and we don't know who the quarterback is, that's going to be asked as well. So it makes sense. Let me throw out, because I think we are all sick of the Rodgers discussion. And the fact that Pelissero's tweet said, for now, it didn't say that they've turned the job to McCarthy. It says, for now. Here's my working theory. And it makes sense because there were definitely camps that were getting their information from the Rodgers representatives. My working theory is this, and this is his devious side, and there is a devious side here, okay? He could very easily, it looks like, sign with Pittsburgh today. And it's done. He's going to go to training camp with Pittsburgh. He's not doing that. He needs time, right? I think he is somewhat obsessed. Well, I think he's a weird guy, but I think he's somewhat obsessed with the Favre thing. And if you guys remember, the Favre thing was I'm going to retire. I'm done, Jets. I'm done playing. He retires, doesn't file his paperwork, and then he waits. And then he waits until he wants to come back. I could see a side of Aaron where he says, you know what, I'm done. He won't file his paperwork, but what he'll do is see if McCarthy fails, and hope for that. Now, if I'm the Vikings, I'm out on that because that's BS. But I'm just telling you that when we're talking about the sliver of hope, I don't think it's the Vikings who are like, yeah, we might call you. I think it's the Rodgers people who are like, well, if your quarterback gets hurt or doesn't work out, we're going to keep ourselves available.
Can I add to that real quick before Doogie jumps back in? Because this is I know, again, I think people are kind of fatigued by the Rodgers conversation, but the parallels continue to be incredible from 15 years ago. And what happened in training camp of 2009 is Tavares Jackson was the youngish second-round pick that the Vikings liked, but they had already kind of seen him fail on the field for a couple years. So I guess the Vikings right now are a lot higher on JJ McCarthy than the Vikings 15 years ago were on Tavares Jackson going into that training camp. But there was a very notable practice about 2 weeks into training camp where Sage Rosenfels and Tavares Jackson couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in 7-on-7 drills. And Brad Childress and Rick Spielman and company had enough. And they had already been in discussions with Brett Favre, but it took a disaster series of training camp practices for them to say, we got weapons on offense, we got a loaded defense, and we can't mess around at quarterback. As long as JJ McCarthy holds his own throughout OTAs, mini camps, and training camp as a leader and as a passer, he won't have to worry about that. But if he doesn't, and if Rodgers doesn't sign with Pittsburgh or New York, it will be a thing come probably like early August.
JJ is in a good spot. He's been making the rounds from a charitable standpoint. Was at American Indian Magnet School in St. Paul the other day, handing out lunch. Those who have been in JJ's presence the last couple weeks say mentally, physically, he's in a really good spot. Weight-wise, up to like 205, 210-ish. Certainly has added a number of pounds since 8, 9, 10 weeks ago. That visual we saw on the field, week 18, Ford Field in Detroit. If Aaron Rodgers wanted to be a Steeler, isn't that a done deal this second? If he wanted to be a Giant, I think that's a done deal.
Yes.
This second, I have no doubt Aaron Rodgers wants to be a Viking. It's entirely possible. Yes. He sits out, he waits, and it inevitably might be retirement. At some point, he does file the paperwork, but just sits out. It's Vikings or nothing. I think he absolutely wants to be a Viking, though, and I don't fault him one bit. But I think JJ would have to fail miserably, or more so, I think it would have to be some sort of catastrophic injury. Yeah. And at that point, do you turn to whoever the number 2 is? Do they trade for a true number 2, or is it Joe Flacco or Ryan Tannehill? Don't sense there's any sort of like true urgency on that front. Is it compensatory pick related? We can throw that around. But I don't sense like the Vikings are on the cusp. I suppose one new phone call could change things, but I don't sense the Vikings are on the cusp of signing a true number 2. But they are going to allow JJ every opportunity this summer into training camp to win this job, to be the guy come week 1.
Yeah.
So the growing speculation, I guess, in the last week or so, Doogs, has been that the Vikings are not interested in signing a quarterback off the market, that they're actually going to trade for one, which
Yeah, they
leads
might.
to
'Cause, there haven't been any offers. Like even on Mason Rudolph,
right.
on Mac Jones, on Jacoby Brissett. The only offer I'm aware of was to Daniel Jones. And I saw some national steam on the Vikings pulling the offer after they thought he was going to Indy. Is that semantics? I mean, the Vikings wanted Daniel Jones back. I mean, what does it matter? If you thought he was going to the Colts anyway, did you pull the offer, not pull the offer? That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But there was an offer made to Daniel Jones. I mean, I've heard that from multiple people. They wanted Daniel Jones back. But after that, I haven't heard of any offer. So trade, sure, that sounds like.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the reckless speculation? Like who would be out there that they could trade for, that they would trust, but clearly is not a guy that's in line to start 2025 for his current team?
Aiden O'Connell. I saw that name floating around.
Yeah, and Sam Howell.
I think I like O'Connell more than Sam Howell.
Aiden O'Connell wasn't that Rondale Moore's college quarterback too? I think.
Yeah,
At Purdue.
Should have been, right?
I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Who were the 22 draft quarterbacks, or even the 23 that are backups right now, that you could look at as a clear-cut number 2? Like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think they were fans of him pre-draft last year, and I know he was recently moved, but is he still attainable? But I don't know if you look at him as a true number 2. Maybe he's more a developmental number 3 type guy. I just wonder, all the homework they've done on these draft eligible quarterbacks the last couple years, is there a guy from one of those draft classes? I guess it would be the 23 or 24 draft classes, excuse me, not necessarily 22.
Well, 22 would be a 4-year contract. It'd be 1 year left. Okay, that's a fun exercise here, and it is a reckless speculation Thursday. So Kenny Pickett was already dealt for. This is the 2022 class. Desmond Ridder. So these would be guys that maybe have a year left on their rookie scale deal that you could take a flyer on and see if you like them. So Desmond Ridder. Where's my sort tool? Bailey.
And he's available right now, right? Just based on the way he's bounced around, isn't Ridder like you could sign him today, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I don't think he's on their radar. At least
Bailey Zappi signed with the Chiefs. He was cut and then signed with the Chiefs. Yeah, Sam Howell, Skylar Thompson. Well, Brock Purdy, but he ain't signing to be a QB2. He's signing to be a $50 million guy.
Although remember, these guys tried to sign him post-draft, right? If he wasn't Mr. Irrelevant, they were hopeful that he was going to hit the open market. Now, so were the Niners if the Niners didn't pull the trigger, or, the Texans had some interest. But the Vikings absolutely wanted to sign Brock Purdy post-draft.
Yeah. Hey, let's throw this one out here. So Rondale Moore came in for a visit last week. Things went well. He did do a couple other visits, but he signed with the Vikings yesterday. He is a very diminutive slot receiver, 5'7", 5'8", second-round pick. He hurt his knee last year in the preseason. He was traded to the Falcons, hurt his knee, never played a game for the Falcons. I'll tell you guys, I spent an embarrassing amount of time watching Rondale Moore YouTube videos, just his joystick quickness. This is a classic Kwesi and KOC buy low stock, right? It's a second-round pick coming off an injury. He ran a 4.3 40-yard dash at the combine coming out of Purdue. He also was one of those weird players where he ran into the COVID year, his third year, so he barely played. I think he had an injury as a sophomore, too, in 2019. But his freshman year at Purdue in 2018, he led the nation in receptions, yards, and touchdowns as a receiver. So him as a third option, or kind of a gadget option in this offense, is really intriguing to me, provided that he can get back somewhere near 100% after missing a year in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, much like Jeff Okudah, why not take a flyer? I mean, for the Minnesota sports fan, you mentioned 2018. The Gophers kicked Purdue's ass that year, but Look at the box score for Rondale Moore against the Gophers at then TCF Bank Stadium. Think about the games he's had against the Vikings. So if you're just a Minnesota football fan,
Yeah.
Big Ten, NFL, what you think of Rondale Moore, you think superstar. Like the way he's performed, whether against the Gophers or the Vikings, has been off the charts. Now, I will add, I'm told 1-year deal. I don't think this is any sort of break the bank type money. I'll wait for the contract to get filed before spewing any sort of monetary terms. But 1 year on the length. Also, the Bears. I'm told the Bears did not offer him. I don't know about Tennessee. So he visited the Bears and Titans, but I can tell you 100% the Chicago Bears enjoyed their time with Rondale Moore, but told they did not extend him an offer.
Sneaky little thing here about him as well. So in 2021 with the Cardinals, he returned 21 punts for an average of 8.1 yards and also was used on 13 kick returns. Brandon Powell, it appears, I would guess from the way that they're signing guys, is not coming back. And if he does, it's with no assurances of a roster spot. And we do have to think about this if Powell is not back or is back at his cut of who's going to return punts. So I wonder if he also, because he certainly has the size, right? A little shifty punt return guy. He certainly has the profile of a guy that you would, at least in training camp, explore as a potential punt return guy.
Yeah, and Isaiah Rodgers, is he more a kick return background guy, or is he also a punt return potential candidate?
I'll look that up.
Kick returning, I'm fairly certain on Isaiah
Okay,
Rodgers
not
at like
sure
a
on
really
punt
high
returning.
average.
Yeah, but regardless, there hasn't been any Brandon Powell returns team. If you had asked me 8-9 weeks ago, I would have told you, yeah, I could see a scenario where Brandon Powell's back, but I don't think so after this Rondale Moore move. He also runs the ball a lot. Phil, do you have the rushing numbers for Rondale Moore? Like,
Yeah.
I was cutting up some video. I was in the TV newsroom Wednesday night, so I was cutting up some video for our 10 o'clock sportscast. So I went down the rabbit hole of just chasing down on social media, on YouTube, like you, watching a bunch of clips of Rondale Moore. Then I had our friends at ESPN send me some video. A bunch of the highlights were rushes, were carries. So he gets the ball out of the backfield and boom, he goes. He carries the ball a good amount.
It's he has 52 career carries, quote unquote, for 5 yards per attempt. A little bit of semantics in there,
a wide receiver.
but it's a little bit semantics. It's like bubble screens or little flares where it's behind the line of scrimmage. It's a backwards pass. There's some jet sweep stuff in there too. So he's not gonna. I don't think he's like a Deebo Samuel quite necessarily, where a lot of them are true rushes on reverses and stuff. But yeah, he is, dude. He's slippery. He's joysticky, and he's been a guy that can make huge plays when he's healthy. But he just has not been able to stay healthy throughout his career. That's the problem.
I still wonder: is there another potential wide receiver move with a presumption on a Jordan Addison suspension for certainly more than one game, whatever that looks like? There hasn't been any steam on them wanting to extend Jalen Nailor, even though, he chased down some new representation in the last year. I think they like him, but he's entering a contract year. If you really wanted to extend him, like, to me, there's genuine interest in extending Josh Oliver. One example, right? But I haven't heard, and certainly Josh Metellus, but I haven't heard of any Jalen Nailor extension steam. So I just wonder, is there the potential of another receiver move out there? Maybe not immediately. Again, going back to our conversation on Tuesday, the way they're structuring these contracts, the Garrett Bradbury post-June 1st designation, why do that? Like, you didn't really need to do that, so you have some more immediate space. Like, even at the trade deadline, like, is there the potential, right? Whether it's an Adam Thielen or someone else at the trade deadline, late October, early November, are they thinking about adding another receiver? Just something to think about.
Fair to say that with the prospect of Jordan being suspended for, let's say, 2 or 3 games, though, that this team would not feel comfortable with Jefferson at the 1 and Nailor at the 2 for 3 games. So I think you're probably right. Like, look, Jalen's got some things he does well. He has a little bit of a propensity to drop the ball, like the Rams game. But that being said, he clearly serves his role okay now. But if I'm going to miss Jordan Addison for 3 games, I'm not personally comfortable bumping Nailor up the depth chart again. So I think you're right, and I would not be surprised if they actually made a move going into training camp, because just from experience, my guess is Addison's going to get pinched in training camp. Like it's going to be some arbitrary August day and like a Friday, and it's going to come out. So I think the Vikings are going to be. I think the Vikings are probably banking on the fact that they are well aware of a suspension is coming, and that you can't wait until the deadline. Because ordinarily, I do think that they announce those things a year out in training camp. So I think you're probably right about that, Dukes.
Now, I mentioned Tyler Lockett, even going back a couple weeks, and I don't think so. We thought he was committed to the Raiders, but maybe that's not quite a done deal.
I think you're right.
But those close to Lockett still say Pete Carroll loves him more than the Vikings. But I was led to believe the Vikings had some interest. But I don't know if you also now do Lockett when you have more. And to me, signs still point to, even though it's not quite a done deal, even though there was steam last weekend, but that Tyler Lockett ends up with the Raiders. But there's still some other guys out there, like Keenan Allen, who's had a lot of good games against the Vikings. Would Keenan Allen do anything for you? Is there a role for Keenan Allen here?
Yeah, I mean, if
trade, I wonder about that. Put it that way.
A guy like Keenan Allen as a number 3 receiver, and then Rondale Moore coming in and doing his Rondale Moore thing. He's not going to be a super high volume snap guy, but there's some former number 1, number 2 receivers out there. Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett. I mean, hell, Stephon Diggs, who's 4 months post operation.
Yeah, so he's visiting the Patriots. I don't think Diggs is coming back yet.
All of them are.
The issues were with others, but I don't see it.
All of them are number 3s on this team, and they would have to be okay with some limited snap counts, except for the 3 weeks that Judd's kind of projecting the Jordan Addison injury. So, Dukes, we'll get to some more Viking stuff here and other things in your scoop bag. I'll tell you, last night was a legit pizza night in the Mackey household. And Doogie, I'm so sorry. I forgot to text you again.
I know you did.
I remembered now.
Me too. Don't forget about me.
We could have watched that Wolves meltdown together. Thanks.
Don't get me. You guys are lucky there's no official flagrant howls today.
Way to go, Dukes. Way to round
dumb loss after dumb loss. But that stone-baked cracker-thin crust, that zesty tomato sauce helps me get over it here. You can find legit pizzas, which are, I think, the best frozen pizzas right now in the game. You can find legit pizzas at a store near. I saw Declan had an armful of 5 of them. He sent us a picture.
4 yesterday. 4 Pep's legit pizzas.
Just rocking the legit pizza, have an authentic at-home pizza parlor experience. And then when you're done eating the legit pizza, you can call and get your teeth cleaning appointment at Park Dental. You can just cover all the bases here. Park Dental is my new dentist. I've had 2 awesome checkups, and they helped me out in a moment of need because I didn't have a dentist. I went a year and a half, no cleaning, which you're not supposed to do that. And they didn't even yell at me. That's what's, I would say if you're ranking things that you're afraid of when you go to the dentist, are they going to yell at me for something? And no, not at Park Dental. They are highly professional and state-of-the-art equipment and tools. And for over 50 years, Park Dental has been caring for and cleaning teeth in Minnesota and Western Wisconsin. So if you're like me, looking for a new or a better dentist, you can schedule your checkup at parkdental.com. That's parkdental.com. And then one more thing here, Dex. We got the Twins firing back up.
Yep.
They play on the road to start the season, but soon they will be home playing baseball at Target Field, and tickets are available.
Yeah, April 3rd against the Astros. First 10,000 fans get a City Connect beanie, sponsored by your local Northland Ford dealers. You can go get those Twins tickets, twins.com/tickets. The Mets, meet the Mets. You can see them in April as well. Go to twins.com/tickets to learn more.
All right, dudes. Any other Vikings?
Today, Twins at Cardinals. Let's do it.
Yeah. Any other Vikings things here on this scoop session before we get to the
reiterate,
rest of the scoop?
draft visits April 7th and 8th. Draft Network reporting Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon among visitors. I mentioned Cody Lindenberg, the Gopher from Tuesday. He'll be among visitors as well, that early stretch of April. I was over at Gophers Pro Day on Wednesday, ran into Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell and Ryan Grigson and Wes Phillips and Brian Flores. I mean, the Vikings had 20-something people at Gophers Pro Day. So it was a nice representation. The Vikings coaches were at the Wild game last night in one of the suites. So the Vikings were making the rounds on Wednesday. Justin Wally, Gophers cornerback, not necessarily, big time on the Vikings radar, but I know the Ravens and Steelers both had position coaches at Gophers Pro Day on Wednesday. You think about Wally coming in as a freshman, like he was a really good player as a true freshman. I think somebody is going to get a steal on day 3. I think about, somebody like Beanie Bishop, who was here for a hot second, then went to West Virginia, started games last year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Or Ben St. Juste, a transfer from Michigan, came in here for a little bit, then started games for the Commanders, just signed a second contract with the LA Chargers. Interesting about that, by the way, Harbaugh, when he was at Michigan, tried to convince St. Juste to medically retire. Now Harbaugh is signing Ben St.
Wow.
Juste. That to me is just, it's very inner football, but to me that is incredibly fascinating. But I think about Bishop and Juste as former Gophers cornerbacks. I think Wally can have a comparable career path where he will end up starting games in the NFL. And I am telling you, I'm a big fan of Cody Lindenberg, have been since I saw him at Anoka High School. I think by the end of year 2, so the end of 2026, by December of 2026, he will be a starting linebacker in the NFL.
PJ Fleck does a really good job developing NFL players.
Correct. I had a nice conversation with his general manager on Wednesday. I mean, we're looking at a 6th consecutive year of them having a first or second round pick. Ariante Ursary, the offensive lineman, if he's not like late 20s, early 30s, like right on the cut line of the first round, he'll go top 50. He'll go, within the first 15, 20 picks of the second round. That's pretty impressive. I don't know how many programs can say, certainly Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, the best of the best. But I'm not sure how many programs can say for 6 straight years they've produced a first or second round draft pick. So, yeah, they do. They develop NFL players. I also think there's a chance, Phil, like how many Gophers will get drafted? Ursary, Lindenberg, Wally, Daniel Jackson, I think should. Max Brosmer, I think should, although quarterback gets a little weird. But there certainly is a chance the Gophers set a record for number of draft picks. I mean, they may end up with 6. If they get to 6, that's a record. If they get to 5, I believe that ties the record. But yeah, undoubtedly, yes, PJ Fleck, his folks, they produce NFL talent.
And they're not getting, the other schools that you mentioned, that, the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Bamas, those schools are getting 15 to 20 4- and 5-star recruits every recruiting cycle. The Gophers might get a small handful of 4-star guys over like a 2-year period. So I would say, relative to the caliber of players they are recruiting out of high school, it feels like they're pumping out better and higher end players when you use that as a benchmark. So
absolutely. And
just got to get that basketball
mention
program in the same spot, dude. Well, that's all we need.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nico Medved, I mean, do they lose Colorado State as soon as tomorrow? Now you're starting to hear some rumblings of West Virginia. So Nico's wife graduated from Morgantown High School. She's from Morgantown, West Virginia. The Mountaineers actually had interest in Nico a year ago before hiring DeVries. So maybe they should have just hired Nico then. If I had to bet, it'll be Nico Medved here at Minnesota, not at West Virginia. But in the last 24 hours, that West Virginia chatter has started to pick up. I didn't mention Quinn Carroll, Danny Strigo. I mean, there's other players. Maybe they don't get drafted, but they'll absolutely have a chance to sign a nice undrafted free agent contract, go to somebody's training camp, try to win a job that way.
All right, boys, let's do it. Let's rip off the Band-Aid and talk some Wolves. Now I've been at the Wild the nights that they played their past 2 games, which have been debacles. But this team won 8 consecutive games. They seem to have put their problems with taking opponents too lightly or just struggles behind them. What has reared its ugly head in these past 2 games that we thought had been suppressed, had been stomped out, clearly had not been?
Can I take back what I said on Tuesday at the end of the show? Saying the Wolves will be fine.
Go
Can
right
I get
ahead.
a mulligan
Absolutely.
on those comments?
Hey, Judd said they were winning 50 games, so I feel like
you're among friends here. Hey, I did think 8 games they beat bad teams. I was very much they're past this immaturity, so I'm as surprised as the next guy. I guess I shouldn't be, but I am.
They are not defending, whether it's ball pressure, ball contain, rebounding has been blah. I mean, Jaden McDaniels, do you have the box score in front of you, Phil?
No.
Did Jaden McDaniels have as many rebounds as you did last night?
Yeah, he was.
Which is shocking because for the last 6 weeks, he's played the best basketball of his career. But, I don't think Jaden McDaniels had a rebound last night in 20-something minutes. Julius Randle, it's not just McDaniels. Julius Randle, just a couple rebounds, right? 2-3 rebounds. Gobert had rebounds, but I still think he missed out on a number of rebounds. They're not defending, Judd, which is weird because overall they're still a top 10 defensive team. Like, you trust the defense. So if you're Finch, I think you've got faith that they can revert back to how they played during the 8-game win streak, but they just haven't defended this week. That's been the really, really weird thing. And hey, they're just mediocre at home. Like, they might be better off sitting right where they are, that 8 seed. Open up on the road in the play-in at the 7 seed. Maybe that's your pathway to getting the 7 seed. Then you end up, because to me, playoffs, it still comes down to matchups. If the Wolves open up as a 7 seed, but they get 2 seed Houston or 2 seed Denver, the Wolves can win a series. And if you're on the other side of the bracket from Oklahoma City, there is a pathway, maybe not a real legitimate pathway, but there's still a pathway to the West Finals. And I get it. The Wolves have played the Thunder really well this year. I still don't think you're beating them 4 out of 7. So if you can avoid the Thunder as long as possible, maybe somebody else knocks out, somehow upsets the Thunder. I'm just saying, though, if you open up against the Rockets or the Nuggets, to me, if you're a Wolves fan, I wouldn't curl up in the fetal position. Now, if you open up against the Lakers, not sure I like that matchup. If you open up against Memphis, although who knows? Like, Ja Morant's now hurt again, a different injury. So are they healthy? Are they not healthy? But I don't know if I like the Grizzlies matchup either.
I hope A-Rod moves him to Seattle after last night.
Well,
I'm just done.
that's not a bad talk.
Positive Phil is retiring for the rest of the season.
Speaking of A-Rod, so I got clarity on this. So I've mentioned this. So Glenn Taylor has until May 11th to appeal the decision. On what grounds, I'm not sure. Like, to me, the only grounds would be trying to prove the independent arbitrator, Thomas Fraser, was somehow biased. I don't know how you would win that argument. So I really don't know on what grounds he would appeal on, but he does have technically until May 11th. But I was told, I don't have the exact date, but it's sometime in mid-June, that if this thing is still up in the air, Glenn would actually be responsible for the luxury tax bill, not Mark and Alex. So if you're Glenn, the easy business decision is, hey, Mark, hey, Alex, the team is yours. You cut the check for $90-something million for that luxury tax bill in mid to late June. And hey, Glenn did pay the luxury tax after they made the move. Gerson Rosas went to him. They acquired D'Angelo Russell. They went a tick above the luxury tax. So he paid in, $1 million-ish, maybe $1.5 million. Not much, although you don't get to then take the money from the pie. Right? If you're paying in, you don't then get to grab money from the pie. But still, think about it. Mark and Alex taking over as majority owners may end up paying a luxury tax bill for $90-something million. So in a 4 or 5 week period, let's say, of them being majority owners, they will pay a luxury tax bill of $90-something million. Glenn Taylor owned the team for how many years and only paid a luxury tax bill of like $2 million. It's interesting when putting the numbers out there, how many millions of dollars in luxury tax payments Mark and Alex are about to make, presuming this thing gets pushed forward, Board of Governors and all that, compared to Glenn Taylor.
Yeah, so that's why you bring in Michael Bloomberg. Hey, listen, Big Mike, come over here. Why don't you bring your we'll play credit card roulette, Big Mike.
How about the Celtics sale price? I mean, we discussed it months ago, but now it's coming to fruition. $6.1 billion.
So what's the price for the potential expansion teams in Seattle and Vegas then?
I mean, I'm not quite sure it's $6.1 billion, but
no, it's not. But
we're
I'm
talking,
just saying,
yeah, I mean, something billion, right? I mean, are we talking 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion? I just know
Vegas, I'm getting 3 minimum.
All these owners are very much pro Vegas and Seattle, or if it's 2 other markets, fine. But those are the 2 most logical markets that the expansion fees that all these owners would receive, they pretty much are all thumbs up. Yeah, let's add. We can add 2 more teams. There's enough talent out there. Let's add 2 more teams.
Yeah. All right, Dukes, great session here today. We got to run. A little reckless speculation Thursday.
2 more notes. So people have seen that Tyler Cochran, Frank Mitchell, and Caden Betts of the Gophers basketball program have entered the transfer portal. The portal officially opens on Monday. All 3 very much open-minded to staying with the Gophers. Why not open up your options? but especially with Nico Medved, presumably Dave Thorson. Like I think about the Frank Mitchell, Dave Thorson connection. Like Frank Mitchell, I absolutely could see being back here. So just because these guys have entered the portal doesn't mean it's 100% that they are leaving. Then shameless plug for my TV partners, 45 TV boys basketball semifinals today, class 3A, class 4A, noon, 2, 6, and 8. The 3A semifinals at noon and 2, Orono against Mankato East. That's a heck of a matchup. Then Totino Grace against Alexandria, another great matchup. Then in 4A, Cretin-Durham Hall plays Maple Grove. Maple Grove has a sophomore, last name Ann, who, well, Ben Johnson offered. So maybe Nico, the new regime will keep that offer. But he's a high major Division I player as a 10th grader. But Cretin, certainly a heavy favorite. They have a sophomore by the name of Ty Schlegel, who also has Iowa, Wisconsin, Gophers offers. And then you have Wayzata against Shakopee. So, if it's chalk, it's Cretin against Wayzata, which would be one heck of a championship game on Saturday. But to me, Class 3A, incredibly wide open. And those 3A teams are as good as most of the 4A teams.
There he is, folks. Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department Shower. All right. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Sounds good, boys.
Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd.